This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to the Friday Breeders' Cup edition of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Just wrapped up the Handicappers Report, and I pulled up the scratches just to kind of verify things. And as Brian Netto alerted, a Shang out today, and maybe a little more notable, Code of Honor also scratched today. So make those scratches. There's some other scratches, but they're virtually all, I think, AEs. Well, one of the early races, the second race, the One Hell of a Life, is scratched out as well. But the two notable, Shang, and Code of Honor. All right, I'm going to get right into it. Yesterday, I spent a good portion of the day talking to a half a dozen people down in Kentucky to get some live commentary on the racing today and tomorrow. Everybody I talked with talked a little Friday and Saturday, so we parsed things out. Today we'll hear the Friday half of these interviews. Joe Christofek, the Churchill Downs paddock commentator, Randy Moss from NBC, Jenny Reese, who is the longtime turf writer for the Louisville Courier-Journal, but now works for various racing entities in Kentucky, Ellis Starr, a racing analyst from Equibase, our buddy Steve Bick's been doing the radio show down there all week long, and Mike Welch for the Daily Racing Forum has been looking at the workouts for the past couple of weeks down at Churchill. So we have them all lined up both for today and tomorrow. Again, programming note, handicapper support tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., Racing Across America at 9 a.m. tomorrow. But as I say, I'm going to jump into it because a full show. So first up, Joe Christofek, paddock commentator for Churchill Downs. He'll be on the simulcast signal all weekend long for the Breeders' Cup as well. He was doing some of the workout shows this past week. Up next, Breeders' Cup commentary from Joe Christofek. Every racing day down at Churchill Downs, Friday and Saturday. He's going to be part of the Players Show for the Breeders' Cup if you're watching the simulcast signal. Joe, good morning.
Good morning. What day is it again?
Yeah, exactly. I think we're all like that, but in a couple days, Christmas.
Yeah, right on. I mean, and it's been a great week and a half leading up, just doing the Breakfast at Breeders' Cup's work show, just getting to see all these horses on the track, you know, seeing the Aidan O'Brien contingent finally on Thursday, and just all the stars from all over the country and all over the world up close and personal.
Obviously, one of the stories watching the simulcast signal this week from Churchill, the weather. I looked it up. We were talking a little bit before we went on the air. As we tape this on Thursday, looks perhaps a little grim today, but improving as we move towards Saturday.
Yeah, it's worse than a little grim. I think I needed to build an ark to get here today, Seth. It's been raining nonstop for the better part of the last 24 hours, and it's going to be 36 probably before all is said and done. But it's supposed to clear tonight. It's supposed to be cloudy, but no rain in the forecast for Breeders' Cup Friday. There will obviously be a ton of give in the ground on the turf. And then Saturday's supposed to be sunny and 60. The turf won't have much chance to dry out. Less give than Friday. But if you're handicapping those races, definitely tilt your handicapping towards horses that have either proven that they like giving the ground based on their past performances, or horses that you've seen in the mornings that have handled it, and we have certainly seen a few of those.
And speaking of in the morning, you've been doing the work show over the past week and a half, couple of weeks, and I'm just curious, every year at this time, the potential is there for maybe a buzz horse or two to come out of the morning where people are kind of looking and saying, well, that was an eye-popping set of workouts leading into the event. Any buzz horse or horses over the past week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I need to go back through all my notes to really zero in on all of those, and I'll be posting pics on the Churchill Downs website for both Friday and Saturday, and you'll have a good idea based on my commentary who fits that bill. I will say Bulletin, a horse in the juvenile turf, is a horse that I've really liked. Another one that I've really liked is a horse in the juvenile turf, the Jeremiah Engelhardt trainee. As we go through this here, and
40 under.
40 under.
Yeah.
Not only did he win on soft going, but he's looked good training on the soft going. So just off the top of my head, those are the two that I can think of right now.
And just before we go on, again, to a couple of the races here for Friday and then moving on to Saturday, I just want to get some of your impressions for the big horse, Enable, how she looked.
Well, I mean, I could call her a buzz horse, but then, everybody knows that she's freaking awesome in her races and just a massively impressive presence on the racetrack every morning. I get chills thinking about it. Seth. She knows she's good. Is she going to win the Breeders' Cup Turf at even money? I mean, if you're a horse player, you got to go fishing around. But she's got a great post. She's made a great presence here. She's fresh for an ARC winner, and I personally hope she puts on a show.
All right, let's get a couple of opinions for Friday, and then we'll move on to Saturday as well. But on Friday, let's take a look at the two highlights on the day that is filled with juvenile stakes races. First, let's look at the juvenile fillies, Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, mile and a 16th. They're facing off the 2-year-old fillies for a couple $1 million. The usual suspects are here coming out of the important prep races, and I think in both of the juvenile races, they probably have to get through the Southern California Invader, and here it's Bellafina. I took a little shot with Restless Rider, though. I thought the Ken McPeek horse looked pretty good coming out of the Alcibiades. What are your thoughts on the juvenile fillies?
I haven't been overly impressed with Bellafina, and I really don't like that outside post for her. If she's going to win as the favorite, I'm going to tear up most of my tickets. I agree with you, Seth, and I looked at this race for a long time, and I have intimate knowledge on most of these horses, having followed them all season long on both coasts and here in the Midwest. I like Restless Rider. I just think she's going to get a great trip. There's a lot of speed in here. She's got a good stalking style. She did get a perfect trip in the Alcibiades. She was bet like she was supposed to win, and she did. And, she tripped out that day. She could trip out again in this race because there's so much speed in here that I think it's going to set up for somebody from just a little bit off of it. And I think Restless Rider couldn't be doing any better coming into this race.
Yeah, we just watched that Alcibiades, and I thought she looked very good. So I'm tilting in that direction. But in the juvenile, the 2-year-old males, grade 1 event, mile and a 16th. And again, they're facing off for a couple of $1 million. I did go with the Southern California Invader. I think Game Winner for Baffert looks very, very tough. But I thought Complexity for Chad Brown coming out of the win in the Champagne was maybe the most likely contender. And I almost tilted in that direction. But I think Game Winner just looks too good for Bob Baffert. Your thoughts on the juvenile?
You could be right, but he's another horse that if he wins, I'm going to be tearing up a lot of tickets. I got a feeling, and you could put this on tape, Seth, and maybe replay it in March or April, that Game Winner is probably the 5th best 2-year-old that Bob Baffert has in his barn. And I really believe that. And I know Bob has been talking the horse up, but I just know that this horse is carrying the torch into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he's got a lot of horses back there that when we talk about February, March, and April, those are the names that we're going to be focusing on. I do think the two horses coming from New York are both massively talented. Complexity, he is fast, he is rateable, he is straight as a string. He switches leads perfectly in the stretch. And then Code of Honor, who ran second behind him in a troubled Champagne. I think both of those horses are really, really, really good. I take either one or both of those over Game Winner. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I have them sitting in the 2nd and 3rd spots, and our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds, Gunmetal Gray, I put down in the 4th spot. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think a couple of intriguing 2-year-old races highlighting.
Let me throw one more in there real quick, Seth. There's a long shot. The horse that Game Winner beat 2 starts back, Dueling. He looked really good when he broke his maiden at Santa Anita, first time 2 turns. He's putting blinkers on for the first time. I got some inside info. They wouldn't be wearing blinkers if this race were at home, but they're a little bit scared of the surroundings in a new venue. They think it's the right time. He won with something in reserve last out, and he's 20-1 in the morning line. So take a look at him in your gimmicks. I think the favorites are going to run well here, though.
I like. Again, parsing out Friday and Saturday thoughts. Dueling was a long shot play in there. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile for Joe Christofek. Manny Franco on board for Jerry Hollendorfer at a 20-1 price. So tossed out a little bit of a long shot play there to wind up his thoughts on Friday. We'll have more from Joe tomorrow on some of the Saturday action. We'll continue now with Friday thoughts. Randy Moss from NBC Sports, obviously in town to cover the Breeders' Cup for NBC, along with the usual suspects as colleagues. He talked about bouncing around the backstretch with Jerry Bailey as well this week. Up next, Breeders' Cup thoughts from Randy Moss. Joined now by Randy Moss from NBC. NBC coverage Friday, it's 3 to 7 on NBCSN. Saturday, NBCSN 1 to 3:30, and then NBC proper 3:30 to 6. Randy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Seth.
And, a week and a half or so ago, pre-entries came out. Record number of entries, and of course Breeders' Cup always means horses from all the various venues, including overseas, but with the record entries and a new race on the schedule, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, prep work has to be a bear this year.
Panic time has begun to set in. You know, the way we like to do things, Seth, and I'm sure it's no shock to you because, I mean, you know how anal Jerry and I are, but we want to have for each race that we do on TV, on NBC, we want to have talked to every trainer, sometimes the owners, sometimes some of the jockeys, and have every base covered by the time we go on the air. Well, I mean, Breeders' Cup, you got no shot. Good luck. So we just try to, get as much as we can done and burn the midnight oil for a couple of weeks to try to get ready for these races, and just know that there's no way you can have every single thing covered going in. It's a little bit of a disconcerting feeling, but it is what it is.
Well, I know our man Mike Kane, puts together some pretty good notes too, so that'll help out.
Yes, he does. He does. Very good job.
Let's talk a little bit about you're on the ground down there now, and so I'm asking everybody we're talking to who's down in Louisville. It seems like this time of year there's always the potential as you get into that last week and a half or so. Is there a buzz horse that's kind of floating around on the backside, on people's lips?
I don't think there's any particular one buzz horse, just because there's so many races. It's not like the Kentucky Derby where everyone's focused on one race, and you get these, usually one horse, sometimes two, and everybody's talking about, how well the horse is training and all that. When you got 14 different races running, you might have 14 different buzz horses going on, if not more. Obviously, Enable is getting a whole lot of attention just because she's probably the most high-profile horse of any of the horses running in the Breeders' Cup this year in the Breeders' Cup Turf, just because of obviously her, her back-to-back wins in the Arc, and the fact that Gosden, has decided to bring her over this year and didn't last year. She's made good appearances here at Churchill Downs so far, and she's clearly getting a lot of attention.
Well, let me ask you bring up her, and so I'll ask kind of an overarching question of the couple of days. Bettors always like to know, if you're playing those pick bets, is there one of the so-called free squares out there perhaps? And if so, would it be Enable or maybe Newspaper of Record, or do you see somebody else as maybe being a potential single?
To me, Seth, I think the free square is probably Newspaper of Record.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got the European contingent coming in, but, for some odd reason, whether it holds this year or not, I don't know. But the Europeans tend to dominate the juvenile turf for the boys, and the Americans have been dominating the juvenile fillies turf. And this year, Newspaper of Record looks like, on paper at least, that she's a standout. And she also could have the run of the race strategically. Because there's not a lot of early speed in there. She can be on the lead. She can be just off the lead. So to me, she is the most likely single of the 2 days.
Yeah, she's certainly been impressive in her two New York starts so far. Let's talk about the dirt juvenile races, and it seems like it's going to go through the Southern California runners, Bellafina and Game Winner. In the juvenile fillies, I have Bellafina underneath. I liked Restless Rider off of her Alcibiades at Keeneland, but I couldn't get past Game Winner on the male side, although Complexity certainly looks very tough for Chad Brown. What are your thoughts on the juvenile races on the dirt?
Well, let's start with the juvenile fillies. I mean, it's going to be a very strongly run race from a pace perspective because you've got Serengeti Empress, but you've also got Vibrance, who set a really quick pace in the Chandelier in California. Now, I know Michael McCarthy, the trainer of Vibrance, doesn't want to see her on the lead again, but he wants to see her sitting right there off of Serengeti Empress, and they're going to be going pretty quick. And Bellafina is no slouch herself in the speed department, and she'll probably be sitting just outside those two, 3 wide, not too far away. So I agree that it kind of sets up pretty nicely for Restless Rider. I think she'll take a rail trip around the first turn. She'll probably be sitting in the pocket fairly close up because she's got a little speed as well. And I would expect when they get to the stretch for it to come down between Restless Rider and Bellafina. And I think, they're both extremely talented fillies, but Restless Rider might have an edge, having saved some ground, where Bellafina might be out there 3 wide the whole way. Obviously, it could go either way. As far as the colts go, there's plenty of early speed in there as well. I mean, Complexity figures to be up on the lead. I think that's kind of what Chad Brown expects, but you've got a lot of horses in there coming out of, some sprint that have shown sprint speed in the past. Plenty of speed that could force a fast pace in there, and I would expect Game Winner to be sitting back, 4 or 5 lengths off the pace this time, and I think he's going to be really tough to beat. I know you can't always go by what trainers think, obviously, but I know, Baffert is extremely high on him, and he has come from 4 or 5 lengths off the pace before in a sprint race before last. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue for him.
Certainly has looked impressive out in Southern California. Before we move on to Saturday, just want to go to the juvenile turf and get a couple of opinions there. You mentioned the Euros do very well, but I thought there was a couple of horses, American horses, that I'm going to key on in here. Opry at 15-1 for Todd Pletcher, I think maybe is better than we saw in the Pilgrim, but 40 under, who won the Pilgrim, I think could be tough too for Jeremiah Engelhardt. I had him on the show a couple weeks ago. His horse had worked earlier that morning up on the Oklahoma at Saratoga, and he was pretty happy with that, but I think his worked nicely down at Churchill Downs as well. So 40 under and Opry both appeal to me in the juvenile turf. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Seth, I know the clockers are really high on what 40 under has shown so far. I mean, we have so much going on that, we don't have time to get out there with the binoculars and stopwatch and start clocking the workouts. But guys whose opinions that we really respect, like Mike Wells, for example, from the Daily Racing Form, has been raving about 40 under and how well he's been training. But, to me, I don't think any of the American male 2-year-old turf horses really blow me away. So I'm kind of looking more European in that race. And with the best Coolmore horse drawn in post 14, Anthony Van Dyke, I think Line of Duty, the Godolphin horse, is probably the one to beat. He's pretty well drawn toward the inside. He's run some good races over there. Finishes really strongly. Miles shouldn't be a problem, and I think he's got the edge.
Again, we parsed out Friday comments and Saturday comments from all the guests we talked to when we taped yesterday, so we'll have more comments from Randy and all the guests tomorrow as well. But we'll take a break. When we come back, more in our lineup for Friday Breeders' Cup thoughts. Stay tuned.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Let's jump right back into the action. We'll get back with Jenny Reese down in Louisville, as I say, as most of our guests are on the show today. We talked to her yesterday and got some Friday Breeders' Cup thoughts. Jenny Reese. We'll be joined now by our friend Jenny Reese, for years the turf writer for the Louisville Courier-Journal, but now retired. And Jenny, I'm putting up the air quotes after retired, because lots of work for the Kentucky HBPA, also publicity for Ellis Park and Kentucky Downs. Jenny, good morning.
Good morning, yes, and thank you for the air quotes. I think I'm working more hours now than when I worked for the paper, and I worked a lot of hours for the paper.
I'm sure you are, from the press releases you send out and whatnot, but I wanted to touch base because, of course, you're down in Kentucky and want to get some, as it were, boots on the ground conversation. We've done so already over the early part of the morning, but we'll get some of your thoughts. And again, you cover Ellis Park and Kentucky Downs. They both have some participants on the weekend, and I wanted to get to Ellis and just talk a little bit about, because I'm sure I've mentioned this as we've talked to you over the past year, going back certainly to the summer of 2017, but again this year, 2018, really a good two-year-old program at Ellis Park. And on Friday in the juvenile races for the Breeders' Cup, boy, you guys are represented Ellis Park with 5 or 6 runners who made appearances in the two-year-old races at Ellis this year.
Yeah, it really is a bumper crop for both Kentucky Downs and Ellis Park. And you mentioned Ellis and the two-year-olds. They've got Nick's Go, who won the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland at 70-1. And it was funny, during the post-position draw, they put up his odds, and they had him 6-1. I said, well, he's getting some respect now. And then they announced, oh, we made a mistake. It was really 30-1. So he's still not getting any respect. But, you know, he's a nice-looking horse. I watched him train this morning. And you know, it would not be a shock. I'll tell you the one I really kind of like is in the juvenile turf, Henley's Joy. I think that he checks a couple boxes for me. He broke his maiden at Ellis, and then he won the stakes race at Kentucky Downs. And I tell you, that juvenile turf, what a wide open race that is. The co-favorites are 5-1. And he's co-second choice, or I guess it'd make it co-third choice at 8-1. So that's just a fantastic betting race. But I give them a shot, and I give you've got in the juvenile turf sprint Moonlight Romance, who beat the boys to win the $500,000 prep race at Kentucky Downs. I just caught her on the corner of my eye training this morning. It was very dark. It doesn't get light here till almost 8, so sometimes it's kind of hard, even though they have the lights on. It's hard to sort of pick up the horses, but that's one thing that's so different from the Derby with the Breeders' Cup. There's just so many horses, and all day, even though they have a special time at 7:30 that the horses could go out, just Breeders' Cup horses, they're out all morning, starting at 5:15, and then ending about when the grass horses go out at 9:30. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to have a busy weekend, just writing about my Pete's.
Yeah, you mentioned Moonlight Romance, 12-1 on the morning line. Wesley Ward, Ken and Sarah Ramsey, Philly facing the boys. But that's what she did in that Kentucky Downs juvenile turf sprint. And going back to Kentucky Downs, folks who watch me on the afternoon handicapping show for the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks know that one of the angles I've focused on over this past month, I really think the Kentucky Downs runners have been doing very well as they've moved from Kentucky Downs onto other venues. And it's really regardless of the surface. Obviously, Kentucky Downs, all turf, but they've moved over and raced subsequently on dirt and done well, but of course done well on turf. I think Moonlight Romance is very interesting, but that's an angle. And again, following Kentucky Downs as you do from the publicity side of things, I think those runners have done very well as they've moved on from that meet.
They have, and I wish I had an exact stat for you. Last year we came up with that stat, how many won their next race. And but the only bad thing about it is now, well, not bad thing, but you don't get the price you used to get.
Yeah. Although there was a Kentucky Downs exact at
the very first race at Keeneland.
Yeah. It was like $900 for a buck.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I'm here. Of course, here I am with my hands in my pocket, not going to the window. But no, it's been great, and it would be. Last year there was only a couple Kentucky Downs horses and no Ellis horses, believe it or not. Maybe. No, I don't think there was any. Maybe one of Dale's. But so I'm real happy, and I don't know if it's just because the Breeders' Cup's back here, but I think all these horses, like they all finished first or second in their last race. I mean, they all definitely belong here. And I'll tell you another horse who could be good at a price is Will Call in the Turf Sprint. His dad was second in the Turf Sprint to Regally Ready when it was at Churchill. And he ran very well at Keeneland, and they don't think he really likes Keeneland. He ran terrible at Ellis, but they had just shipped him. They had shipped him up to Saratoga for the stakes, and then that's when they were getting all that rain or whatever. Yeah. So then they brought him back and ran him at Ellis instead. And just they said even in the paddock, you didn't think. But that's a horse that I think that like nobody's. Well, there's so many horses. It's hard to. There's a lot of horses that fall through the cracks. I mean, that's what makes it such a great betting thing. Is, but yeah, he certainly, I think, and like I said, I think Will Call will be a huge prize.
And I know Friday thoughts from Jenny Reese. Again, we'll have some more thoughts via Jenny Reese on Saturday action tomorrow on Racing Across America. But now we'll move on and get Friday thoughts from the national racing analyst at Equibase, Ellis Starr. Ellis giving some Friday Breeders' Cup thoughts up next. Happy to be joined by our friend Ellis Starr, the national racing analyst at Equibase. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, racing fans.
Christmas for horse players coming up Friday and Saturday. We get Christmas like 3 times a year. Derby, Breeders' Cup, and then the real Christmas.
Well, I include Travers Day.
I like that. Yeah, okay. What am I? I'm right down the road. I'll go with Travers Day. That works for me as well.
Big deal.
But, it looks like a lot of fun Friday and Saturday. Hopefully the weather will moderate a little bit. We'll get a nice couple of days down at Churchill. But we're going to take a look at some of the action and, of course, the race of the week on Equibase. And for folks who haven't checked it out yet, every week Ellis does a nice write-up on one of the big stakes races of the weekend. This week, of course, it's the Breeders' Cup Classic. But Ellis also full card selections for Breeders' Cup races available at Equibase, correct?
Yes, just have your ink and paper ready because I really try and go into detail with contenders, fair odds, 7 pages for Friday, betting analysis. How I'm going to basically write it for me. And I share with everybody. So I'm going to play the races, 7 pages for Friday, 10 for Saturday at Equibase.
Sounds good. Let's jump in and get some ideas for Friday's action. Let's start with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Had some guests on already today and talked a little bit about this race. And I said, I think in both of the juvenile races, on the dirt, the fillies and the boys, goes through the Southern California runners. So Bellafina, probably the horse to beat in here, but I'm going to try to do it with Restless Rider. I really like the Alcibiades performance, so I have that one on top, Bellafina, and then Jaywalk coming out of the Frizette last time for John Service. Serengeti Empress is maybe a little bit of an interesting horse for me coming out of the Pocahontas for Tommy Amos. But again, I'm going to use Restless Rider on top. What are your thoughts on the juvenile fillies?
We're close with a little different order, and I think the Eastern horses are a little stronger. But I really like Serengeti Empress. I got 4 contenders in here, for some exactas, some trifectas. Going to do a bunch of different things in pick 3s and pick 4s. My main contenders are going to be Serengeti Empress, Bellafina, and Jaywalk. Going to use Restless Rider on consecutive race bets, but I made her 9-2 on the sheet for my fair odds. The other 3 I can't really separate, but Serengeti Empress did everything right, stretching out 2 turns. Little advantage for me always, the 2-turn preps over the 1-turn preps. I think she could have gone much faster, believe it or not, even though she didn't really slow down, winning by almost 20 lengths, the 92 Equibase figure. Before that, the Ellis Park Juvenile or Debutante was actually as good of a race, and she won by 13 with a 96 figure. Bellafina just is course, undefeated. I'm sorry. She's won 3 in a row, including the 2-turn Chandelier, and she ran a little bit faster in the Chandelier on the Equibase scale. But there's still an issue of if she rates and if Serengeti Empress gets out on a lead here, which you never know what's going to happen with some of these fillies, she can win. Jaywalk certainly is a nice filly. She's on a great improving pattern, 85, 94, 103 figures off the 5-length win to Frizette. But this will be her first 2-turn race. And both the wins, or 2 of the 3 wins, came wire to wire. And I don't think they're going to outgun Serengeti Empress early. So, again, I'm looking for anything better than 5-2 on the 3 of them, with preference to Serengeti Empress. Main exact is going to be Serengeti Empress, Bellafina, and Jaywalk in a box, and I'm going to come back and do a 4-horse box with Restless Rider and play the 2 Serengeti Empress, the 10 Bellafina, the 7 Jaywalk over those 3, plus Vibrance, the 3, and Restless Rider, and that's how I'm tackling the juvenile fillies.
I like it, and I will also say race number 7, that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies on Friday, kicks off a pick 4. That will end up in race 10 on Friday, which is the marathon at 1 3/4. Scheduled field of 10 in here. Some familiar names: Toast of New York, Imperative, War Story among the entrants in there. And again, 1 3/4 makes it kind of intriguing. Your thoughts in the marathon on Friday?
Well, this is very intriguing. I've got I'm going to try and split the favorites or beat them. The 2 favorites are likely War Story and going to be War Story and Dabster. Rocketry is another one. My picks in order of contenders, wing contenders, are Honorable Duty, Rocketry, and Big Dollar Bill. I'll just throw the exact out now. It's those 3 over those 3 plus War Story and Dabster, and I always turn it around for a buck, because if they run 1-2, it's the same as boxing when you play those kind of bets, 3 over 5, and then reverse it. But Honorable Duty is the most interesting horse. He's almost 44,000 short of $1 million, and he loves to win races. He loves Churchill Downs. He's 4 for 10. Never run further than 9 furlongs. But 2 things are really interesting. Stats Raceland's our product that is sold at Equibase and other places, allows me to look at sire and dam stats and set distances. And I set the distance from 12 to 16 furlongs, so 1.5 miles to 2 miles. And it came up with Disordered Humor's got only 8 foals that have run the distance, but 7 foals, but they're 2 for 8, 2 different horses to 1. But better than that, I look at Brendan Walsh in these kinds of races. I forget, I'm not a historian, so I forget this kind of stuff. Brendan Walsh won the marathon in 2016 with Scuba. He ran 2nd in 2014. He ran 3rd in 2013. He's an Irish trainer. He certainly trained a lot of horses that are stayers. And if he thinks his horse is a stayer, I'm not going to argue. He ran 2nd in the Foster to Pavel, so he's okay on class. Ran 2nd in the Ali Shiva last year on the Derby weekend. He won the New Orleans last year. He's 1 for 3 this year with the 2nd and 3rd. He's 4 to 1. It's not a great price, but I really like his chance. Rocketry's proven. He won the Temperance Hill at 1 5/8. It was a career best race. Hardspun, as we know, could run all day himself. And comparing that 2 for 8 stat for Distorted Humor, Hardspun foals are 7 for 17. 9 of them have run 12 to 16 furlongs in the last 5 years. And then Big Dollar Bill, who won the 1 3/4 Birdstone. And what's really interesting about Big Dollar Bill, Seth, is that when he won the Birdstone, he was stretching out off a 4th place finish in a 1 16 allowance race. And after winning the Birdstone, he ran 3rd in the Greenwood Cup, also 1.5 miles, cut back to a 1 16 and won. Now he's stretching out again. So the stretch out from 1 16 1 3/4 was successful earlier in the year. So I think he can do it. I'm very surprised if one of these 3 didn't win the marathon.
All right, thanks to Ellis Starr. And again, we parsed things out Friday and Saturday. Some more comments from Ellis coming up tomorrow on the Saturday Breeders' Cup races. But we'll take a break now. When we come back, Steve Bick, Mike Welch, also live from Louisville. Taped them yesterday, but again, with Friday and Saturday Breeders' Cup comments. We'll take a break, hear from both of them right after this. Stay tuned.
Dirty windows? Don't do it yourself. Call Clean Image, your window cleaning professionals, and enhance the look of your business or home without the worry. Clean Image pledges nothing less than 100% customer satisfaction. It's guaranteed. Homes, offices, bed and breakfast, vacation homes, and more. Clean Image Image has cleaned them all. Carpet and floor cleaning, pressure washing, and janitorial services are also available. Call today, 446-1397. That's 446-1397. Online at clean-image.net.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit RTN.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Not at the track and not near a computer? No problem. Wager with Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System and you'll never get shut out again. Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System is quick, simple to use, and guarantees your wagers are accurate and placed on time. For more information, visit CapitalOTB.com or call Capital OTB's customer service hotline at 800-292-BETS. Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System. Never get shut out again.
That is one snappy promo. Makes you want to get up and dance, doesn't it? But don't forget, if you don't have a Capital Bet account, again, the Bet 200 Get 200 promo is going through November 4th. Perfect time to sign up now through November 4th. Bet 200, Get 200 for new Capital Bets account holders. Go to the website for more information on how to sign up. All right, let's jump right back in. Our buddy Steve Bick has been down in Louisville all week long doing the radio show, so we got some Breeders' Cup thoughts from him. Steve Bick, next. Our friend Steve Bick, he's been down in Louisville, obviously, doing the radio show, Sirius and XM's At the Races throughout the week, and I've listened. A lot of good info handed out on the radio show. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
And again, good work this week, as always, keeping people well informed.
I appreciate that. It certainly has been kind of a fast-moving week, I could say that, and the difficulties posed by the weather, I think, has been a fairly prominent portion of the storyline, and not even necessarily affecting the racing. I think the main track will be all right because the main track is remarkable here, and it dries like no other dirt surface in the country. But the bigger question, Seth, is so many people talking about why are we not at Santa Anita on a semi-permanent basis? And I'm telling you, that is going to be a conversation, especially pending on what happens with the turf races. And given the condition of the turf course, that's up in the air. But there's going to be I want to say outcry, but there's going to be a lot of clamoring on that front.
Yeah, the byword of the racing game is always, well, we play the game outdoors, but even outdoors in Southern California, it's usually pretty nice. I wanted to get a little a flavor of the atmosphere, particularly because they're in Louisville, and of course, you at the radio show go to all the big events, which includes the Derby. So I'm just curious, Derby weekend versus Breeders' Cup weekend and the race leading up to it, what's the atmosphere like at Louisville, and how do they compare and contrast?
Well, the Derby is the Derby. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. You could compare this basically to Travers Day versus Thursday of closing week. I mean, it is nothing like Derby. In fact, the other morning I even said, people think, oh, I'm coming to Breeders' Cup. I've been to Churchill. You haven't been to Churchill if you haven't been here for Derby. There's nothing else. It is so quiet here, you cannot believe it. And the weather certainly contributes to that. But it has just been, I mean, it is dead, to be honest. I even said to Darren Rogers, the director of communications, I said, is it me? And he said, no, it's not you. It is exceptionally quiet. And I brought this up actually today as well with Steve Haskin and Lenny Shulman, saying that there are no stars here. And I think a lot of it is the problem of the 3-year-olds, that with Justify out of the picture and with a general consensus that the 3-year-old crop was ordinary, there's just no verve. The only star here is Enable. I think there'll be some stars coming out of here, notably the 2-year-olds, obviously. But there's really no marquee value or marquee name that has got everybody a tither. There isn't even a Goldakova. There might be afterward. Polydream may be the new Goldakova, but not right now. So it is exceptionally quiet. And I'll tell you another contributing factor that nobody could have foreseen, and that is the 7-1 Kentucky Wildcats. That people are more excited about UK Georgia on Saturday than they are about this event. I'm telling you right now, it's a problem. The game starts at 3:30.
Oh man, yeah.
And there's going to be people that are way more tied in to UK Georgia than they are to this event. It's strange. That's a phenomenon because there hasn't been a decent Kentucky football team in God knows how long, if ever.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. All right, let's jump in and talk some of the races specifically, and let's do a little Friday action as well. And as we talked beforehand and decided which direction to go, I'm happy you pulled up the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint because, again, tying into your radio show earlier this week, I was listening, and I think it was both Sid Fernando and Gary Young mentioned in this turf sprint, Soldier's Call. This is an interesting race to me because I'm going to take a shot with Stillwater Cove. Wesley Ward has some really interesting horses in here, and I'm going to look for that one to rebound to what we saw up at Saratoga at a 20-1 morning line. So I use that one over Bulletin, and then I have Shang 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 and Moonlight Romance also in for Wesley Ward. Bulletin, Pletcher horse. But you guys, as I say, we're talking earlier this week on the radio show, Soldier's Call. If folks haven't paid attention, and I'm glad they brought it up because it's worth noting, this horse was a just missed third in a Group 1 in France last time as a 2-year-old facing older horses, and that has to be a notable factor for folks. Soldier's Call again. But what are your thoughts on the Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Well, the Soldier's Call story is tremendous, and of course Wesley Ward did the same thing with Aurelia's Girl when she ran in the Nunthorpe against Elders. And got beat an absolute dirty nose. But Soldier's Call for that reason alone is fascinating. And granted, got a ton of weight in there, but still, facing Elders, come on, that's audacious. There's a number of very good Euros in here that are going to be considerations or prime plays for people, including Sergei Prokofiev. There's also a couple of horses that have going to end up probably being longer prices than they deserve to be. The overlays outside, horses like So Perfect and Pocket Dynamo that have some hidden form to them and some hidden attributes. I'm glad you like Stillwater Cove. I am all over Stillwater Cove, and exactly getting back to the Bolton Landing distance has, I think, a big look in here. And I don't think we're getting 20-1, but we still could get 12, 14-1 maybe, or we'll see. The favorites, the Cassidy and Ward favorites, to me both seem very ordinary. Strike Silver and Shang Shang Shang, I just don't get. Bulletin is going to be on my tickets as well. So for me, the 2, the 4, the 5, that's the core of my play in this turf sprint. And one issue we have is that's going to be the first turf race really of the week because they were off the turf yesterday and today, Wednesday, Thursday, and this is going to be the first thing we're going to see. So you're not going to have the advantage you will on Saturday after we will have seen 3 turf races, 2 of them at a mile and 1 of them at this 5.5 distance. One thing that's notable, the Europeans have not been successful in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, is the one that'll be run Saturday. It was always assumed that they would succeed in here, and it was a division that was added with them in mind, and yet they haven't won. So if a Euro could win the juvenile version, that would be notable. I think you and I kind of are zeroed in on the right horses, Seth.
Yeah, and as I say, I went 4, 5, 6, 7. but listening to the show, and I honestly hadn't picked up on that, the 2-year-old facing older. But given what Soldier's Call did in that race in France last time, I'm going to add him into the mix as well. Let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, a mile on the grass, race 8 on Friday. I'm going to take a little shot in here as well. I'm going to look for, again, a horse to go back to a stakes performance up at Saratoga. I'm going to use Opry. I liked Opry in the Pilgrim. I'm just going to kind of draw a line through that and hope the horse can rebound. It looks like the latest workout was pretty good. 15-1 for the Pletcher Castellano runner. So I'll put that one on top. 40 under for Jeremiah. Won the Pilgrim. Was working well up here on the Oklahoma track, and I guess the reports have been okay down there. Current in the 4th spot. Henley's Joy in the 3rd spot. Henley's Joy in the 4th spot. That's the way I saw it. What did you think in the Juvenile Turf?
Well, I'll say that I don't understand why you don't have a higher appreciation for the Euros in here. And Anthony Van Dyke, if Anthony Van Dyke had drawn a typical post, if he had drawn probably from the 10 in, he'd be 3 to 5 in here. I mean, on paper and visually, I mean, he's 5 lengths better than anybody in here. The 14 hole is going to inhibit people, and you may end up getting that morning line 4 to 1. And if you do, that may end up looking like a bargain. You got the best jockey in the world in Ryan Moore to work out a trip. And we've been talking this week about Pluck. If we go back to 2010, who won this race from the 13 hole while avoiding a fallen horse. And so it can be done, getting the mile under the circumstances. I mean, the horse to go through here is Anthony Van Dyke. You may pick him 2nd or 3rd given that post, but he cannot be ignored or dismissed. The alternative to Anthony Van Dyke is absolutely Line of Duty, the Appleby Godolphin. And Line of Duty is going to come down from that 10-1 price, Bill Buick, and there's a lot to like on form from him. He's a must, frankly. So those 2 Euros, and even a crazy horse like Mark Johnston's Marie's Diamond is going to be overlooked and is a major exotics candidate in here. I am glad that you're on to Pletcher. I think either of the Pletchers, Current or Opry, are absolutely viable, and it's tough not to take a hard look at Uncle Benny, who draws beautifully for this, the 2-hole for Jason Service, and they were weighing the sprint or stretching out to the mile. He should have no trouble stretching out, and he gets to save ground while doing it. So Uncle Benny, and I think he may, he comes down. He's not going to be less than 10-1 or 12-1. This is a wonderful race that was complicated by Anthony Van Dyke drawing outside.
Yeah, and that's, again, I may regret leaving the Euros out. Line of Duty, I just had a question on the class, and Anthony Van Dyke, it was the post position, a mile on the turf course down there. That shied me away a little bit, but you might be absolutely right. Leaving the Euros out could be a huge mistake. We'll find out on Friday. Let's move on. All right, we will move on to Saturday tomorrow with more from Steve Bick. And again, all the guests. We talked a little Friday and Saturday, so we'll have Saturday thoughts from the guests tomorrow. But one more guest to talk some Friday action. Our friend Mike Welch does a great job. We have him on the set live with us throughout the Saratoga season. Mainly he's down in Florida, but on these big event days, he heads up to wherever the venue is, and he's been in Louisville for the past couple of weeks watching the workouts. So some workout reports and Friday Breeders' Cup thoughts from Mike Welch. Joined now by Mike Welch, the clocker for the Daily Racing Form. Obviously, we're familiar with Mike's work up at Saratoga. Great work doing workouts up at Saratoga and the workout reports up there, but he's been at Churchill for a while now, and along with colleagues at some of the other venues, great workout information via the workout reports at the Daily Racing Form. As you listen to this, both the Friday Breeders' Cup report will be out and Saturday. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
And I'm correct that you've been at Churchill for a while now, but again, the workout reports have folks over at Keeneland and out at Santa Anita, Southern Florida, and those other venues where Breeders' Cup potential horses will be coming from.
Yeah, we've got Belmont covered as well, so we've got all the major bases pretty much covered.
You and I were talking before we went on the air. Obviously, one of the major stories, as we've been watching on the simulcast signal past couple of days, it looks like as we get through Friday and Saturday, things will improve weather-wise, but that will certainly affect things, particularly the turf.
Yeah, I mean, even if the weather does clear up, I mean, the turf course just took so much water that it's going to be far south of firm, that's for sure. I don't know what they're going to finally officially call it, but it was on the kind of sloggy side before we got all this rain. So there's just no telling how that's going to affect the races. Obviously, it gives an edge to the horses that have, been on that kind of surface before, especially the Europeans, and probably puts the California horses at a major disadvantage since they've been, all running on firm ground there throughout the summer. But this might be a little different kind of boggy course that even the Europeans are used to. Some riders have told me it's a little on the, was on the looser side anyway going in. That's just the nature of the course. So who knows? It's just hard to say. As a handicapper, you really can't predict too much which horses will like it and which won't, other than going by the ones, that you see on the form handles off the ground before. So it is a big variable in, most of the races that are already, wide open. So we'll just see how it plays out. The main track, I don't know if it's going to dry out on Friday. If there's no more rain, it should be okay by Saturday, I hope.
Yeah, the main track down at Churchill tends to dry out pretty quickly. They do a good job. So
it does. They do a good job.
Yeah,
yes.
You would think if the weather turns, they'll be okay there. But as you say, the turf certainly will take its toll. The weather will have taken its toll. And we'll hope that things can improve as we go along. But I wanted to take a look at some of the turf action. On Friday, Juvenile Turf Sprint, brand new on the agenda on the Breeders' Cup, attracted me because I'm going to take a little shot with a Wesley Ward horse that won up at Saratoga. I'm going to take a shot with Stillwater Cove. But I was checking out your Twitter feed, and I'd recommend that to folks, too, if they want to see what you've said about some of the workouts over the past week or so. But you saw a couple of the other Wesley Ward runners, Shang and Chelsea Cloisters. I have Shang in the mix, Bulletin, and the other Wesley Ward runner, Moonlight Romance, underneath Stillwater Cove. But you can hit on Shang and Chelsea Cloisters, who have worked at Churchill, but also toss in a horse that didn't hit my radar when I originally handicapped, but I've heard folks talking now. Soldier's Call, coming out of the race against Older as a 2-year-old, a Group 1 in France, a close-up third-place finish. And I guess Soldier's Call has looked okay in the morning as well.
Yeah, I think he's certainly the best of the Euros in there. And he looked good breezing here over the turf course the other day. It wasn't real fast, but it was just because times around the course aren't going to be overly quick anyway because they're going around the dogs and the courses on the wet side. But he looked good, and I just think off his form, he's the one to beat. I think of the Ward horses, I like Stillwater Cove the best too on the turn back. But Shang just doesn't seem to have returned to her form. She won over in England and hasn't run since. She had a little issue at Belmont. I think Wesley had her entered for a stake, 2 stakes, I think, one against the boys and one against the girls, and scratched out of both. Chelsea Cloisters definitely was best of that team the other day, and neither were eye-catching, but Chelsea Cloisters was certainly the best of that team. So I'm a little against Shang. Chelsea Cloisters, okay, this kind of race, 5/8 or 5.5, sprinting like that over a wet turf course, wow, there's a lot of things that can happen there. You're going to need to get a little lucky. And you mentioned Todd's horse, too. That horse has been working good on the dirt down in Florida. Comes off an easy win. Obviously their main concern, if you talk to them, how he's going to handle the wet track.
Were you there for the debut? I mean, that was a pretty good-looking debut in a stakes race.
I was.
On Gulfstream.
I was there for Bulletin's debut. I mean, he didn't beat much, but when you win a 5/8 race of any kind, turf or dirt, by 8 lengths, that's saying something. He's a very good-looking horse. Todd said he always seemed to work a little better on turf than on dirt, but he works good on the dirt. I saw him down in Florida a couple of works back. He went 5/8 in a minute and change over the Palm Beach down surface, and that's cooking over that track.
All right, let's move on a little later on Friday. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I'm going to take a little shot with Pletcher's Opry in here. I'm going to look for him to rebound to what we saw up at Saratoga in the With Anticipation. But right underneath, I have Jeremiah's horse, Jeremiah Engelhardt, the winner of the Pilgrim, 40 under. And from what I understand, 40 unders look good in the morning as well.
Yeah, I really liked his work on the turf that day. You know, again, the time, you know, it doesn't jump out at you, but it was just the way he did it. You know, he kind of loped around to the top of the stretch and then finished with great energy, galloped out strong, just looked good doing it. I liked, you know, what I saw of his last race too, obviously. You know, again, besides the nature of the turf course, and it looks like this horse wants soft ground. He won the Pilgrim on soft ground, and he worked good over it the other day. But the Euros in there, you know, they're kind of imposing, I think, and they're going to be tough to beat. So, although I probably will bet 40 under, depending on the price. I mean, I am also looking at Line of Duty, who has made a decent impression here, and the Aidan O'Brien horse, especially Anthony Van Dyke, I guess it is. First time Lasix there, and I think on paper he's the best of the Euros, but post 14, that is going to compromise his chances.
Yeah, I had Bick on earlier, Steve Bick, and we were talking, and he was like you, high on the Euros. And Line of Duty, I said to him, I could kick myself afterwards, but I took a little shot against. Line of Duty, I was just kind of questioning the class. I wasn't sure. And Anthony Van Dyke I would have used except for the 14.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's kind of a whole card there, but maybe Ryan Moore can work out a trip for him. But, you know, Line of Duty has gotten progressively better, a mile and an eighth last time, so that could serve him well. Also first-time Lasix. That could serve him well over the boggier course, cutting back to a mile Friday.
All right, thanks to Mike Welch. And again, all the half dozen of our guests today, Joe Christofek, Churchill Downs commentator, Randy Moss from NBC, Jenny Reese down in Kentucky, Ellis Starr, Steve Bick, Mike Welch, all tomorrow on Racing Across America. Will continue with their Saturday Breeders' Cup thoughts and comments. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock for the Handicappers Report, 9 o'clock for that edition of Racing Across America. Going to wrap things up for this edition, this Friday edition. Should be a fun day. Don't forget, we announced earlier, Shang scratched and Code of Honor. I'm kind of happy. I had Shang in my mix. But again, after talking to Welch and whatnot, I may be happy I can look elsewhere underneath. So Shang, Code of Honor out today as far as scratches. Don't forget, we'd love to see you down here at the Racebook or at your local parlor, but at the Racebook, there's seating available today. Should be some room tomorrow as well. Love to see you here. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Stop by your local parlor and make a bet. Another option is Martell's. Martell's at the Colony Golf Course. The bet bus will be there today and tomorrow, so that's another venue you can take advantage of. If you like to bet at home, you can do that too with your mobile device or your cell phone. But you have to have a Capital Bets account, and if you don't have one, now's the time to sign up. Between now and November 4th, bet 200, get 200 when you sign up for a brand new Capital Bets account. And again, not only do you get to bet on your mobile devices, if you come to a parlor, you can type your account number into a terminal and you can bet that way with your account money, but you also get the bells and whistles that are available with betting online, and that includes free past performances and much, much more. If you're a new Capital Bets account holder, again, jump on board between now and November 4th to sign up and take advantage of the Bet 200, Get 200 promotion. More information via the website. $3,000 bankroll team has been chosen. I just pulled up the website, and there is a bankroll graphic and link on the front page of capitalotb.com. If you click on that, it lists the team. So you can see if you were selected for the $3,000 Breeders' Cup bankroll team. But I do want to reiterate, if you were selected, you have to make a bet today and tomorrow with your Capital Bet account. Today and tomorrow. You have to make a bet today and tomorrow to be eligible to grab the winnings from that bankroll team promotion. Mike Callahan has $1,000 today. I have $1,000 at the start of tomorrow. Sully at the end of tomorrow as far as the Breeders' Cup races. $3,000. Hopefully we can knock it out of the park and everybody walks away with a nice chunk of change. But again, you can check the website to see if you're on the team. Make sure you make a bet today and tomorrow with your Capital OTB, your Capital Bet account, which I'm sure on Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, that will be no problem whatsoever. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. We'll be back in an hour and a half or so to do some OTB Live on this Friday afternoon, including the early part of the Churchill Downs card, and give you some Breeders' Cup ideas and whatnot as well. I think it's going to be a fun afternoon of racing. Aqueduct kicking off their season today as well. So hopefully we gave you some good ideas over the past couple hours for Breeders' Cup Friday. Again, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, handicapper support, 9 o'clock, Racing Across America. We'll try to give you some good ideas for Saturday. But use those Friday ideas to make some money this afternoon. Enjoy the racing, cash some tickets. Again, we'll see you in about an hour and a half. See you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.